the defending Western Conference champions, which is FC Tulsa. They're kind of running it back here where we're seeing a lot of the similar faces. Granted, things are subject to change at any given point. So just know that as we're recording this, this is the roster as we know it. But John, when I sent you guys this stuff and we asked for storylines, the storyline that came up multiple times from you guys was, will the West catch up tactically to FC Tulsa?
Yeah, and that was my question as well here. I think people didn't expect this team to be so vertical, so pressureful, really come out with such a significant sense of style last season. And you started to see teams adjust late on in the year. I think about the playoff game against Phoenix Rising, for instance, where that thing was so tightly run against a team in a pretty similar back three. You think about the title game, and it was much the same thing. I don't want to say that there's a blueprint out for how you approach Tulsa, but I think that is the useful framing if you are trying to think of what is the downside for Tulsa. Because there is so much to like. There's so much continuity. We trust Luke Spencer in this roster build. So the natural reaction is, okay, what can go wrong? And for me, that is probably the main scenario where people just decide we're going to bunker and counter and try to meet them toe to toe.
And this was coming off Tulsa's best season in club history. They had basically their entire roster coming out of Taylor Calhira with the additions of Bruno Lapa and Raheem Summersall as being really key additions here in this offseason that we're really thinking this Tulsa team is going to be in the mix for winning the Western Conference regular season. They opened the season with 4 of their first 5 games at home with a very key game away at Sacramento to open the year, that this team could very well be at the top of the table from wire to wire.
For me, what I'm looking at here is, you want to look up top where you're looking at Lapa, Weber, and Calhira, right? But for me, I am looking at this midfield. And what I still think, John, you kind of loosely have Bruno Lapa playing the left wing with Khalil Medkar kind of coming in off the bench for him. I still see Lapa as that true number 8 or number 10. I know he kind of floated roles at Memphis quite a bit, but for me, I still see him as that number 8 or number 10, and maybe they put someone else up top or out and they move someone out. But if I am looking here, you're looking at Diallo, Summersall, you're looking at Coley, you're looking at Lapa. Is that not possibly the best midfield in the league, let alone the West?
I think there's a strong argument to make. And the reason I have Lapa in that kind of half space wing spot is you don't go get a guy who is 2-time all league and not play him. But the system is so dependent on having that variety, that steal through the midfield, that he probably is taking away from what you get from Giallo, from Summersall, that kind of guy. That's the beauty of this roster, though. There's competition at almost every single spot. You could make 8 changes week to week and still feel pretty good about what Tulsa is throwing out. That is something that they gradually built towards in 2025, but they didn't have it on opening day, and that's a different story this year.
And Tulsa will be looking to become the first team to go back-to-back at least regular season champions of the Western Conference since the league split into 2 conferences, and they'll be looking to be the first team to win the Western Conference via the playoffs since Swope Park Rangers did that in 2016 and 2017.
Love that. So, John, I'm going to ask the question here. I'm looking at this back line, and I'm looking at Batista, Sissoko, I'm looking at Ian. But we saw a lot down the stretch in the playoffs where Pierre was getting the start over Sissoko, right? And Pierre was kind of playing as that number 6 in possession, dropping back as a third center back out of possession. Is there a world, even though Sissoko was my defender of the year vote last year, by the way, but we also saw that he was the most expendable in the playoff run as Batista and Ian just kind of won their spots. Is there a world where you see them go to that forward the back in possession with Pierre maybe getting that nod at the 6?
He feels like the break glass in case of emergency kind of player, where if there's an injury in the back line, Dylan Spear is going to do the job there. if they need somebody to just be purely defensive minded in the midfield, he can do it. I don't think he starts in the best version of this team, but the fact that you have him on this roster, he's now a 2-time consecutive reigning Western Conference champion between the Switchbacks and Tulsa. Like that, again, speaks to the depth, even if I don't see him necessarily as a starter.
I want to go to a comment that we have in the chat, and it comes from obviously Mario, someone I talked to when we were out there in Tulsa. He's a longtime supporter, and he just mentions Johan over Tim Bacchus, which we have talked about quite a bit on the show, actually, where I don't understand the move here, where Tim Bacchus seems to have moved away from New Mexico. Granted, we don't know if Tim Bacchus chose to move or if New Mexico moved on from him. We don't know those details. But you can't imagine Tim Bacchus leaving to be a number 2 somewhere. He could have gone somewhere to be a number 1. But we talked about it when we were in Tulsa, John. Johan Peñaranda is one of the better goalkeepers in the league when he's healthy, which this kind of makes me question a couple things. Is Peñaranda not as reliable health-wise as we think, and maybe the front office knows something there? Or are they possibly thinking about having 2 different kinds of goalkeepers that they can just kind of roll out whatever the manager seems fit?
If you look at well, I will caveat this by saying both of us are very high on Peñaranda and what he gives you in goal. In terms of the advanced stats last year, he definitely took a step backwards. And so in that sense, if you can go out and get Alex Tambakis, who is the all-time saves leader in this league, somebody who brings that veteran presence, maybe that lights a fire under Peñaranda to a certain degree. That said, I would have just trusted Peñaranda and gone for a Tyler Derrick-esque, maybe veteran guy, but a clear number 2. But I like the ambition at a bare minimum. Tambakis is a tone setter. He's been around the block. He knows how to win in this league. The more talent you have, that's a good thing, especially at a spot like goalkeeper, where if your number 1 goes down, that can be crippling. Having the layers is a win, even if I'm a Peñaranda guy at heart.
Ryan, when you're looking at this season outlook for FC Tulsa, do you truly see them being what I'll call a wire to wire? They may not actually go wire to wire, but we are calling them preseason favorites. Do you see them as someone who can run the table yet again?
Yeah, I think just based off of what they built from last season, Luke Spencer has been an excellent coach for this Tulsa side, that I think everything is lining up for them to have a really good season, that if they're not at minimum hosting a home playoff game, there would have to have been something that had gone wrong, injuries, or as we were saying with the major storyline, the West just catching up tactically to this Tulsa team. But yeah, I mean, pencil them in as one of the top 4 teams at minimum in this Western Conference.
Any thoughts on Tulsa before we move on?
They're good.
They are good. This is one of those things where if you are someone who doesn't get to watch FC Tulsa play in person very often, aka normally an Eastern Conference person, maybe you haven't seen them in 2 years when they weren't amazing, go watch them in person this year for the love. You do not grasp how fast, how quick, how strong, how quick their passing was all year long until you saw it in person. No wonder they were just dismantling teams left and right. You don't appreciate it on TV the way you do in person. Go watch them, please. Just go watch them in person. They are unreal.
And their games on stream are at a very reasonable hour for us Eastern Conference folks.
This is also true.